you studied at both Durham and Oxford. What's the differences between those two universities?
I think, first of all, I'll maybe mention that the similarities, which will then help to answer the differences. The similarities are that they're both collegiate universities. So that means that the easiest way to summarize it is that, like in Harry Potter, you've got houses. In these universities, you've got colleges where your social life is you live in your college, you eat in your college is your house, so to speak. Now, Durham's obviously modelled off Oxford in that sense, but they've got that in common. And it means that your social life is very accessible because you just meet people without even trying. And there's a lot of formal traditions, such as formal dinners where you wear a gown and a suit and sort of go and have a meal at a long table in a pretty grand hall. So those are some of the similarities. The differences, I would say, it depends how you're approaching it. I think the way in which the undergraduate system, at least, is run. Now, I did undergraduate at Durham and postgraduate at Oxford, so I can speak better for Durham, but I can, from what I observed, say what happens at Oxford for undergraduates is Durham undergraduates probably have more time to have fun. So there's more of a work-life balance. You can work hard and get a good degree from a very good university, but also do a lot of sport or a lot of music or going out to bars with your friends without too much concern about what that will mean, because you're assessed each and every year and it's sort of weighted. Your first year doesn't count, your second year is 40%, and your final year is 60%. So there's less pressure insofar as it's all drawn out. Whereas in Oxford, for the undergraduates, it all comes down to your final exams. It's not coursework, it's final exams, maybe with a bit of coursework scattered here and there. And it means that the pressure comes down to exam week. And I think that's just immensely stressful. Fortunately for me in my postgraduate, the method of assessment was essays, not exams. And that suits me very well. But I think the main difference would just be stress and time. Oxford students at undergraduate just don't have the time necessarily to enjoy the university experience quite as much as other universities allow people to do so. That's not to say they don't enjoy themselves, they definitely do, but the enjoyment comes with a bit of a sacrifice. You're then stressed the next day, and I don't necessarily think that I felt quite as stressed at Durham as I would have done as an undergraduate at Oxford. From my point of view, I'm very glad that I had the opportunity to do it the way I did. Undergraduate at Durham, where I could have fun and get a good degree, and then a master's at Oxford where I could also have fun, because I think master's level is less stressful. You've already got a degree behind you, so you don't have to worry about that. And you've spent 3 or 4 years already learning how to do it. So you're a bit more set. I think for anybody who's wanting to do a master's, whether it be at Oxford or elsewhere, I would say if you have the time and you find funding to do so, go for it, because it is a really exciting opportunity. If you can do it in a subject that you love, that's even better. But if you have to do it for a subject that might help your career, go for that too, because an extra year of being a student is no bad thing. It just gives you that time to learn about yourself a little bit better.
Did you find the teaching which you received at Oxford to be superior to that of Durham, or is it the prestige that the university has mostly down to the high entrance exams and barrier to entry? It creates sort of litmus tests for elite, effectively, and then it has that aura, or is the teaching that much better?
So I would say that, okay, first things first, the professors I had at Oxford were wonderful. They were incredible. They were at the top of their field and they were great. But so were the professors I had at Durham. And I would say that can be said for almost every university in the country. To be a professor at university level, you're the top of your game. You're the expert in your field, whether that's Oxford, Lancaster, Bristol, Essex, you name every university in the country, the professors will be incredible. So I don't think it necessarily comes down to the standard of teaching by the professor. It maybe comes down to the mode in which the university asks for it to be done. At Oxford, you have tutorials where you're with a professor and maybe 1 or 2 other students. So you've got a lot of direct focus. At Durham, you have seminars of maybe 10 to 20, sometimes even more students, usually 10 to 20. So if you were to take this professor who's giving the seminar to 20 people and put them in an Oxford environment, you would gain just as much from them as you would from the Oxford professor. It's more about the focus on you as an individual that really helps. And I think that's what sets the Oxbridge experience apart and gives it its elite sort of aura, is because of the fact that you're getting so much attention from a world leading expert. Whereas at other universities, you've still got a world leading expert, but not putting all of their attention into you and one other person. I think that's probably the main difference. The libraries at somewhere like Oxford just have so much more funding that you do have a lot of access to whatever you want. And if you need a book, the library can afford to buy that book for you. So there is that, which makes studying a lot easier because you know that you've got basically unrivaled access to any information you want.
So what was it that you were studying at Durham, and then what did you go on to do at Oxford as well?
So I did, officially the degree title was Modern Languages and Cultures at Durham. So that was for me Italian and French. Now within that, each year you'll do 6 modules. 2 of those modules will be language, so Italian and French, and 4 will be what they called cultural modules, which by and large is literature, but you can tailor it to also be art history or philosophy or something, as long as it's related to the language or the linguistic area that you're studying. So if you're studying French, it's anywhere in the Francophone world. You could be doing French literature, or you could be doing literature from parts of the Caribbean. But it means that the degree was largely literature, art history, philosophy based, but with language components. And then at Oxford, I carried on with just Italian, but you didn't do languages at that point because they assumed that having done the undergraduate, you've got the language. And having done a year abroad on your undergraduate degree, you should. And that's also in itself a great opportunity. And I then went at Oxford, studied basically Italian art history and literature in tandem with one another. So a lot of my focus of my thesis was to do with artistic representations of a certain canto from Dante's Inferno. So like putting literature and art in dialogue with one another was my main focus, really.